got Mr. Maloof on with us right now. His articles at worldnetdaily.com, and we link to them on Infowars.com. Here's Alan West. Congress must probe military firings. I agree with that. I've been saying that for months. General blames Night Stalker for military purge. And he's got General Boykin, all of them going public. Congressional Medal of Honor winners going public. Major generals, you name it. And so he joins us. Sir, thank you so much. Please break down from your high-level sources as much as you can tell us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Number one, there seems to be something permeating not only at the high ranks, but now it's coming down to the mid-levels and even mid-level officers and even into the enlisted ranks. If you disagree with the president's or the administration's policy, you are basically set aside and your career is basically ended. And this seems to be catching on more and more. Now, there are, as Congressman West mentioned to me, there are some zipper issues that have occurred even among the higher ranks. But as General Boykin told me, this is unprecedented to have so many flag officers, so many four-star generals removed in such a short period of time. I mean, we're talking about 9 general officers just in 1 year. He removed some the previous years. Now, some of the other presidents, Bush and removed a few generals because they disagreed with his policy on Iraq. But it wasn't at the scale that we're seeing in the Obama administration today.
In fact, sir, I've seen Defense Link articles, and I've seen your articles. It break it down. It's 200 or more. This has never happened in U.S. history, and it's not like it's a downsizing. This is political persecution. Can you tell us what the generals have told you the litmus tests are?
Well, some of the litmus tests include if you speak out against radical Islam, like Lieutenant Colonel Dooley. This was, and then General Dempsey, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, actually ridiculed Doolittle for doing that. But this was an instructor who was talking about radical Islam in a classroom in an approved class, and yet he's out. And so and we've had some other officers and even enlisted personnel saying that they get more training in sexual harassment than they do in firing their weapons.
Well, that was my next point. We have Fort Hood leaking 2 weeks ago, and that Fox confirmed it. The Secretary of the Army, as you know, went public. They were saying if you're evangelical or give money to the Tea Party, we will court-martial you. Yes. That is unprecedented. And then bad-mouthing the Founding Fathers and Army manuals? I mean, this is absurdist.
Yeah, this is the generals have been quite vocal that if you're not speaking the administration outlook on things, you're basically going to be railroaded out. Now, the generals and military personnel generally cannot speak out against the commander in chief while they're on active duty, But
exactly, sir. So you're the expert on this. From what I've read, these guys really aren't even bucking things. No. They just know they're patriots, so they must be spying on them or have intelligence files on them?
Well, as I think General Vallely told me, they've actually have senior officers who are acting almost like communist political commissars.
That's right.
Who are looking out for anyone who expresses opposition or even questions a policy determination. And you can't. And the troops believe that their First Amendment rights now are being dismissed as a consequence.
Well, yes, sir, Mr. Maloof. If you tell somebody you can't give money to evangelicals or the Tea Party, that is a trillion times over the top. Yep. I mean, that's like Soviet level.
Yep. Well, that's why General Vallely said it was like communist commissars. This is the way things are going. They're, the enlisted men and even the mid-level officers are trying to watch their six constantly now because they don't know if they say something that's out of line, they don't know if this is the end of their career. Oftentimes they're not told anything. Nothing. It's just that they just don't get promoted, and they get set aside, and if you don't get promoted after a certain period of time, you're out.
Now, you talk about the big issue here, the morale. They've got to know persecuting Christians, saying you can't even give money to the Tea Party, violating their First Amendment. I mean, they've got to know that's going to kill morale, trying to put women in frontline combat.
Yes. Well, there are three elements here that are really sticking in the crawl of a lot of the military personnel. That is, one would be gays in the same foxholes, women in the foxholes, as well as the rules of engagement. Rules of engagement are really a demoralizing factor, and as a consequence, number of our troops have actually gotten killed because we couldn't respond in a firefight, and or there could be the possibility of civilians, and so our troops have had to stand down. There have been instances of this time and again, especially in Afghanistan. And it's actually gotten some of our troops killed.
But then meanwhile, that's when it's a group they want to protect. Meanwhile, from what I've heard from my sources, what's really freaking the military out is that they're now actually having to go to Iraq and Jordan and actually train al-Qaeda. And these guys are on the record on foreign news bragging that they literally insult on the basis, I'm surprised they don't get killed, these special warfare people, and say, I killed you dirty Americans just 5 years ago in Iraq, and when I'm done with Assad, I'm going to kill you. That has got special warfare literally freaking out because, as you know, committing suicide because they're being told to train al-Qaeda. What can you say about that?
Well, the problem is that we're seeing increasing numbers of these guys who are our friends today, but are going to turn on us tomorrow. Just like we trained the Mujahideen and actually helped create the Mujahideen against the then Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and now it's become our worst enemy. And
well, sir, I've been asking the questions.
We've had guys shot by green on blue, and there have been some very recent cases of this.
Yes, sir. You're the expert on this with your sources. I mean, you've got Congressional Medal of Honor winners, retired major generals. Just an incredible list talking to you and really not to anybody else. Why have they come to you, A, and then B, I've been asking the questions. I want to give you the floor the next 10 minutes, sir. Give us a presentation on what you think is most important, what people need to know, and what this is going to do to U.S. force structure with China and the rest of it literally turning into something like a Marxist college. I mean, that's going to destroy the military.
You know, a few of the generals told me, I reached out to them, and some of them have been somewhat outspoken on this, but when you actually confront them and get them to think about it, they see a much larger problem here that's emerging, and it's permeating throughout the ranks. It's just not a few. And they're seeing some of these firings as being politically motivated. For example, the three generals that got canned right on the eve of right after Benghazi. The concern is that they were using the firings to deflect attention from this ongoing investigation on Benghazi, which is far from resolved. And as a consequence, there seems to be the notion of trying to hide things. We've had some CIA officers actually told, if you go up and testify, you're going to be removed from your jobs. So the intimidation is somewhat happening in the intelligence world, but it's also much more, and it's easier in the military world because these guys have to salute, take orders, and shut up. But the overarching picture is that it's having a fundamental problem of emasculating the troops. I've had General Vallely and even General Brady tell me that our readiness is being affected as a consequence of this. Our troop structure is being cut back tremendously. They're using age-old equipment. Our ships, we're down to about a third of the size of what our Navy was in terms of capital ships at the time. So there's a complete emasculation of our military forces across the board, and this is becoming a very, very serious problem in terms of readiness. And I think this is what is really of concern to the upper brass.
Well, again, if you just joined us, we have a gentleman who advised the Pentagon on national security at the highest levels for a long time in the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Michael Maloof. He's got his new book out. We'll talk about that some briefly here in a minute. Look, here's my issue. Okay, I'm known as this radical libertarian guy that is so out there. Now I'm not known as that because it's all coming true. I wish I'd been proven wrong. I would love to not work this hard, not be in this much danger with these people, with the threats and the socialist harassment and all of it. But I mean, it does get to a point where I can't even believe this, that we have the training manual and the threats saying the founding fathers, quote, wouldn't be accepted in today's military. I mean, I can't even believe it's that over the top. And then we have them saying, if you are part of the Tea Party and give them money, that's aiding a terrorist. And we're going to use stuff that's used on Al-Qaeda if you're funding radical Islam. And we're going to arrest you. It actually said you may be court-martialed. That is so over the top. And then meanwhile, there is radical Islam, and I'm not some, as they call it, Islamophobe, but I know there are those major radical elements that Obama is totally cozying up to. So let me ask you this question from your inside sources and overall full spectrum analysis of this. What is the strategy backing radical Islam, trying to overthrow the military? I'm not a total fan of, but they're better than Al-Qaeda, 10 times better, in places like Egypt, getting rid of Gaddafi, putting in Al-Qaeda, trying to get rid of Assad, put in the crazies. I mean, what is the grand stratagem here?
Well, there seems to be part of it, I think, has to do with a traditional type of alliance that we had, basically with the Saudis. The Saudis have been the biggest exporters of Wahhabi, Sunni Wahhabism for years, and of course they were the creation of a lot of the Islamist radicals. I mean, you have Prince Bandar now, who is well, you might not agree with the government of Bashar al-Assad, but in Syria, he is a major backer and financier of the foreign fighters that are going in there. He's also the Chechens. He told Putin that he can turn on and off the switch. I think a lot of this has to do with our traditional ties and the fact that that Obama now has begun to show a little bit of a tilt toward Iran that has even incensed the Saudis even more, and they're actually increasing a lot of the spread of the Islamist radical fighters. So you now today see them not only waiting for the United States to leave Afghanistan and opening up, which will then allow these radicals to come back into Central Asia, into the Caucasus, but also into the Arabian Peninsula. And then you swing around into Somalia and North Africa and into the Maghreb. There is a pattern of behavior of these radical Islamists, and a lot of this is actually beyond our control today. And with the decimation of our own military, and the fact that we are not that this radical Islamic movements are actually increasing and not diminishing because of all the work we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, we really have a real problem on our hands. And we should not be diminishing the military. We should perhaps be restructuring it somewhat to increase more special forces and what have you.
I agree. Well, sir, I was about to say, I mean, I'm not a military man like yourself for a long time, insider to the Defense Department, but I've made a study of just history. It's so interesting. I mean, I look at where America is right now, and if I wanted to destroy America, even midterm, I would do what Obama's doing. And I've got to admit, he's probably now 10 times worse than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. I mean, this just at a gut level, I look at all the different strategies and stratagem and gambits that are going on, and clearly, I see U.S. interest now turning Al-Qaeda loose in the Red Crescent around Russia, threatening China. And I'm not a fan of what China's doing. I'm an American. But I see almost a setup against America to put us into wars we can't win with infiltration in the military to destroy it. And I've always been somebody who's more libertarian like Rand Paul. I say cut it. But now I get what you're saying is that there's, I mean, for the first time ever, I know the whole CFR elite and stuff are globalists, but I mean, are they really crazy enough to try to really destroy American credibility and get rid of us and maybe just sell out to the communist Chinese or something? I mean, I just look at it and everything points towards sell out America, and the globalists have power through America. And I've criticized that strategy. I don't like being that corrupt imp, but this is really bad.
Yeah, well, we're seeing it now as we try to deploy and do that pivot to East Asia.
Yes.
We just don't have the Navy to deal with that on a full-time basis and try to live up to commitments elsewhere. And when you have a diminished naval force, it's going to make it even much more difficult, and we're going to have people who are just going to leave the military. The fact to get back here to a second to the emasculation of our own military, the fact that they're now easing out the captains and the majors, the people who have actually been fighting the wars, and they're now leaving. Then who do we have who's had that battlefield experience?
That's sabotage.
As they get on up to the upper ranks, it's going to be a very, very serious problem as in the years to come. In keeping a very strong military, and I think that this is what's alarming the generals to a great extent. And this is going to have a bearing on our force structure and our ability to project power in the future, and look out for our interests that we have all around the world. Now, these other countries that you mentioned, Russia and China. Now, it's intriguing that they too have a Wahhabi problem. They have a Sunni radical Islamist problem themselves within the Caucasus and in the North Caucasus area. The Russians are very fearful that these Sunnis are going to be creating havoc come the time of the February 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi, and this is where Bandar came in. He actually said, Mr. Putin, if you change your policies toward Syria and Iran, I can assure you, you will not be attacked during the Olympics by.
And I saw that in the Russian news, and Bandar didn't deny it.
No.
I mean, why is Saudi Arabia so arrogant to threaten a nuclear superpower?
Yes. Well, the fact that Bandar has this capability, this outreach. I mean, he does want to become king of Saudi Arabia when King Abdullah dies. But this is his power base. He wants to be able to show that he is able to project this kind of capability and this power. That's why he's basically taken a much more independent line from the United States, and we see that now in